So what will it take to make a coalition? What wheels need greasing to prevent another election? Joining me to discuss is Blue and White Party Knesset member Michal Cotler-Wunsh and Jeremy Saltan, Director of English Operations and former candidate for Knesset for the Yamina party. Thank you both so much for being with us. Now, Knesset member, I'm going to start with you. Yoaz Hendel, Yifat Shasha Biton, among others in the New Hope Party under Gideon Sa'ar, are claiming that the Likud is offering ministries and other positions to lure them into defecting and joining the coalition. So far, they've said, stop calling, the answer is no. But what are the chances that a defector from any party actually does close the deal for the Likud and for Netanyahu?
Well, I'd be foolish to anticipate the chances after we've seen everything we've seen. What I'd like to maybe focus on is the imperative for a functional government. So even if we talk about, a very narrow minority, that does not promise what Israel needs most, what we have seen over the better part of the last year. And that is, there's no vaccine for distrust. We need a functional government to propel Israel forward, to really maximize the opportunities alongside the tremendous challenges that COVID-19 leaves behind. And of course, with the vaccination rollout, and we've seen the numbers lowering and so forth, except that the real challenges begin to unfold now as we look forward, whether they're economic, health, mental health, and so on. And the real imperative for reform and for a functional government is really, really pressing as we look forward and not, yeah.
No, well, so I was going to ask, do you believe that with the really wide array of sometimes conflicting ideologies in the anti-Netanyahu bloc, do you think that they could form what you would call a functional government?
So very sadly for me, because all we've seen over the last election campaign is a focus on anti-Netanyahu or for Netanyahu and not anything that remotely resembles vision or principled understanding of what those plans will look like, long-term, transparent plans that are accountable to the public, that will be implemented equally and consistently. I don't know what will bind together this proposed coalition, whether it will have, the 61 necessary or not. And I'll say the missed opportunities that come alongside it, because what we've seen over and over is actually that the Israeli public is quite moderate. And I include Jews and Arabs, religious and secular. And even what we see now with Ram, and I don't know that this specific leadership represents those moderates in the way that they would like to be represented, meaning the imperative or the aspiration of Israeli Arab citizens to integrate as represented by what Ram represents, whether or not that's what they believe or not, in the state of Israel that is a Jewish and democratic state. And what a missed opportunity it will be, instead of reaching out and empowering the moderate voices that we see across the floor, if we do not manage to seize this historic opportunity, even in the wake of the Abraham Accords that you touched upon remotely before.
All right, well, I want to get to Ram and their influence on coalition building in just a minute, but Jeremy, I want to first bring you into the conversation. What do you see as the best options here for a coalition? And I know your chairman from the Yamina party, Naftali Bennett, is still not 100% behind anyone, really. He's saying, actually, of Yesh Atid's Lapid, that he's not truly focused on reconciliation. Where does Yamina fall? What's your ideal coalition today?
Look, we're in a situation where there is no clear winner. We're in a situation where no one really knows who won the election. That's just the reality of where we are. When you have on one side Ben Gvir and Smotrich, who say they won't even sit with Ra'am, the United Arab List of the Islamic fundamentalist Muslim Brotherhood group, it's difficult to say that that's even something of a possibility, or to even call Mansour Abbas a kingmaker. On the other side, you have Gideon Sa'ar, who says he won't sit with Balad, he won't sit with the joint list of the other three Arab parties on the right. So what are you left with? You're left with a situation where Lapid cannot form a government, where Netanyahu cannot form a government. And what you need to think about is something perhaps that is different than the paradigm of either Netanyahu or Lapid. Perhaps we need to get creative. We've seen a number of different scenarios and solutions that have been raised by various people over the last few days. We have a week until we get to the recommendation phase by the president's residence. I would say it could be a possibility that instead of the two people who we are expecting to get all of the nominations, that there is a third candidate that emerges, perhaps there are more than 3 candidates that end up getting nominations in the president's residence. And I think that's something that we might need to go ahead and spend some time considering, because again, like I said, Gideon Sa'ar with the joint list and Smotrich and Ben Gvir along with Mansour Abbas. These are just, Michal was talking about stability. There is no coalition that can survive, even if we're talking about support from the outside, for even, I would say, just a couple of weeks in this scenario.
All right, well, let's talk now for a minute about Mansour Abbas, because I think he's at the top of everybody's head here. He's playing both sides recently. He's become very, you could say, pragmatic in his approach to forming a government. And even the Likud, we have a Likud member, Ayub Kara, who just met with him. They're giving him this sort of, mark of approval. What are the chances that Abbas's Ram party actually becomes the first Arab party in a coalition?
0. I mean, if you listen to what Mansour Abbas said himself, he said there are the 2 accepted models of coalition and opposition. What he's suggesting is a third model, which is to vote with the coalition without having the responsibilities of actually being within the coalition. So even if you ask Mansour Abbas, he's not looking to join as a full-fledged member of any coalition. But even in that type of a scenario, again, I just don't see the numbers, whether it's for Lapid, whether it is for Netanyahu. If you add Mansour Abbas's party with his 4 seats to either one of those 2 blocks, you need to go ahead and then subtract more MKs than Mansour Abbas brings to whatever confidence vote we would have in the Knesset to form that next government. Well, so again, I understand that he's the man of the hour and everyone wants to be talking about him, but I think that this is an overreaction to the power that he has. And if you will, this is something for both Lapid and Netanyahu, who both see they don't have a path and are trying to make sure that the spotlight remains on the 2 of them as opposed to other creative options to go ahead and make sure that we spend the next week talking about Mansour Abbas.
All right, Knesset member Cotler-Wunsh, final comments, if you'd like to maybe respond to some of the things that Jeremy has said.
No, I just want to, reiterate a little bit of what Jeremy was talking about, and that is that there are multiple, sort of creative solutions, and the public has asked the elected leadership to find them. That is the responsibility of those elected officials. That is the responsibility of all those that, propose themselves to be the future or the current leaders of the state of Israel. And those creative solutions really demand that, everybody talks about, checking ego at the door or leaving it aside. Well, it's really not about, and you asked before who won or who lost the election, the public is losing. It is the Israeli public. And in that, we all share this real tremendous need and imperative for that stable government that Jeremy too talked about. But that requires not only the creativity of the solutions that will enable that, but inevitably placing the public's best interest above all else.
Some serious compromise, I think, is needed. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Knesset member Michal Cotler-Wunsh, Jeremy Saltan from Yamina, thank you both so much for being with us.
Thank you very much, and Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.